The Black Friday BOGO sale is here at All Family Pharmacy, and let me tell you, this is the kind of deal that actually matters. From November 24th through December 2nd, when you buy one ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, or menbendazole, you get another one absolutely free. So at a time when Americans are tired of being lectured and restricted by bureaucrats, this is your chance to be prepared on your terms. No politics, no gatekeepers, just real options that put you in control. Here's how simple it is. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone. Place your order online and a licensed physician reviews it immediately. Once approved, your medication ships straight to your door, fast, private, and secure. This Black Friday event lasts only 1 week and supplies are limited. So when the inventory is gone, that's it. No extensions, no second chances. Just like every other real deal worth talking about seriously. If you want to stay ready, stay protected, and stay independent, go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone before December 2nd and lock in your Black Friday BOGO deal. Take control of your health. Stay prepared and stay free.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. NBC had a terrific piece last week raising the question of whether the persona, the presidency, and Watergate itself, all of which took place under Richard Nixon, is being historically reassessed, as I believe it should be. Richard Nixon is, of course, the man who ended the war in Vietnam, reached a strategic arms limitation agreement with the Soviets, opened the door to China back when China was a dirt-poor agrarian society with no technology and not much of a military, ended the military draft, unilaterally saved Israel from complete annihilation in the 1973 war, gave us the Environmental Protection Agency, our first federal environmental protection history. It was a consequential and very great presidency. There is no better person to weigh in on this than Ken Kachigian. Ken Kachigian served as a speechwriter for both candidate Nixon, President Nixon, and then went on to serve as a key speechwriter for my other favorite president, Ronald Reagan. Ken Kachigian was very senior to me in both the Nixon and Reagan campaigns, someone that I looked up to then and I look up to now. He has written a terrific book entitled Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon. If you love politics and you admire either one or both of these presidents, I cannot recommend this book as a Christmas present for you more than anything you could possibly enjoy. You can get it, by the way, by going to ReaganandNixon.com. We'll talk about the book. But first I want to ask Ken Kachigian, who joins us now. Ken, what do you think of this long-due reassessment of the presidency of Richard Nixon and also the efforts to get the truth about Watergate out?
Oh, Roger, it's critically important. We've been waiting for this for years, and a lot of this has been due to my colleague's work. Jeff Shepard has been working on this for years. I give him a lot of credit. He's written a couple of books on this, one of them, The Nixon Conspiracy, and he's uncovered a great deal of the corruption that took place in the special prosecutor's office and uncovered the corruption, the absolute corruption of Judge Sirica and that of the two special prosecutors, Archibald Cox and Leon Jaworski. So there and all the maneuverings that took place among the staff of the special prosecutor's office, the unethical conduct that took place with the members of the special prosecutors who met secretly with Judge Sirica without the defense attorneys being present, the shenanigans that took place where the members of the Senate Watergate Committee met secretly with Judge Sirica to set up the defendants who were going to testify at the Senate Watergate Committee that would have harsh sentences set down by Judge Sirica so that they would set up the testimony against Nixon's staff. I mean, it's one thing after another, Roger, that's come out over the last few years, and more is going to come out because that whole special prosecution staff was run by Bobby Kennedy's Justice Department, all out to get Richard Nixon. Lawfare began during Watergate, I guarantee you.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Terrific piece by James Rosen, who was with Fox, so spied on by the Obama administration, a journalist wiretapped and whose emails were being monitored. Didn't hear the left going crazy about that. But a great piece by James Rosen for Real Clear Politics, in which he reveals that declassified documents demonstrate definitively that the Central Intelligence Agency knew about the Watergate break-in well in advance, and thanks to the work of many, we now know that at least 4 of the Watergate burglars were still on the payroll of the CIA. I interviewed Eugenio Martinez, then 91 years old, still with us, by the way, one of the Watergate burglars living in Miami, who admitted that he was working for the agency at the time of the break-in, tried to swallow the key to the desk drawer, where it was alleged that a portfolio of prostitutes who this DNC was using for dignitaries coming to town was being kept that may have had information embarrassing to John Dean. I don't want to get off too much on Watergate other than to say that I agree with you when you say the same forces that took Richard Nixon down in a silent coup for many of the same reasons, because, as you know from his memoirs, also from the diaries of his chief of staff, Bob Haldeman, was his intention to completely reorganize the national security apparatus to take power away from unelected officials that had gotten into the hands of unelected bureaucrats. I think that was his sin. His other great sin was he was a peacemaker. I think that many in the deep state thought when he was elected he was going to be the ultimate Cold Warrior, but as Nixon himself said, the greatest single title that history can bestow is that of peacemaker. Your book is something I highly recommend to anyone who's interested in politics, who likes Presidents Reagan or Nixon. That book, again, is called Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon by Ken Kachigian. You can find it on Amazon if you wish, but I suggest you go to ReaganandNixon.com, ReaganandNixon.com. If you love politics, this is the book for you, because Ken reveals, as never before, as an eyewitness who was actually there, an inside perspective on 2 of the most important men in history, Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, the inside story of their presidencies. He was a trusted advisor, counselor, speechwriter to 2 of the Cold War's presidential lions. This book is fascinating. You'll have trouble putting it down. I recommend it to you. Ken, you were the speechwriter behind the famous phrase in which Ronald Reagan really put away Jimmy Carter when he famously said, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" I remember the hair on the back of my neck standing up watching that debate and watching that line. Tell us about that.
Well, that goes back to early October in 1980, and actually that line didn't just pop up in that debate. We were searching and searching. We weren't doing well in that campaign in 3 weeks before the election, and we were campaigning in Pennsylvania, and I was the chief speechwriter in that campaign for Governor Reagan at the time, and Jimmy Carter, and I was always searching for a line that would resonate for Reagan in one of his rallies, and Jimmy Carter had put out a pamphlet saying that the economy was going well and things were actually doing better than they were, and we grabbed onto that the pamphlet, and so I came up with the line. Look at inflation. It was 18%, and unemployment was like 10, 8, 9% at the time, and so I came up with that line. Somehow jumped out of my typewriter, and I said, "Look around you and ask yourself, are you better off today than you were in 1976? So that was the genesis of the line, Roger. Are you better off today than you were in 1976? That was October 7th, 1980 at the Oxford Mall in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. That's where that line was born. And then Reagan loved it, and that rally at the Oxford Mall. And people cheered, and then he used it again at rallies all across the country for the next 2-3 weeks. And then when he got to that debate, he saw that it resonated, and then he just tweaked it just a little bit and changed it to "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" And bam, and right between Carter's eyes. So that's how that line was born. It's become the most iconic political line in politics.
You were keenly aware of Richard Nixon's both mastery and fascination with politics. You knew him before I did, but I got to experience it firsthand as well. People really don't understand the extent to which Nixon was quietly advising his old friend Ronald Reagan through that 1980 campaign. All those memos, some of which I know you worked on, those strategic memos I have copies of because the president thoughtfully would send them to me. Knew I was running the campaign in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Tell us about Nixon's backstage role, because I think it's fascinating. It's one of the things in your book that no one actually knows about.
That's right, and that's why I hope people will get my book, Roger, because these are secret memos that, especially in the 1980 campaign, that were never revealed before until I wrote my book. And I can't go into every single one of them because they're long, 10, 11, 12-page memos. But nobody knew about Nixon's secret advice to Ronald Reagan in the 1980 campaign. And that was mainly because, frankly, Nixon was a little bit toxic because of Watergate. And we couldn't let it be known that he was helping out Reagan. But he was secretly telephoning me all through the campaign in September and October and passing along advice to me to pass along to Reagan. But then he wanted to give him some really strong advice through not just telephone calls, but he wanted to write a memo. So Nick Ruey was his chief of staff then in New York. So Nick called me on the campaign trail, and I was in Kansas City, and he said, the boss wants to pass along a memo. And so he gave himself a secret name, Mr. Hudson. And it was like a CIA agent meeting with the KGB. I described this all in the book in great detail, how I had to go 2 blocks away from my hotel and have this secret meeting with Nick Ruey so I could pass along this memo from Nixon over to Reagan. And then Nixon also sent a second memo advising Reagan on the debate with Jimmy Carter. These are fascinating memos, Roger, because Nixon was advising Reagan on what issues to hit in the 1980 campaign. And then at just about every other stop, Nixon we would arrange a phone call where he would pass along advice to me by phone, and then I would pass it along to Stu Spencer, who was managing the campaign. So people never knew about how Nixon was secretly passing along advice to Reagan. And I detail it in great detail in the book because I was keeping tape-recorded diaries in a little mini cassette tape recorder that even the campaign didn't know about it. So I detail it in great detail in the book.
You were the last of the holdouts. You opposed the president's decision to resign. You were one of the few to go with him to San Clemente. Let me read a quote from President Nixon himself. It comes from his book, In the Arena, A Memoir of Victory, Defeat, and Renewal. He writes, "Those first 4 years in San Clemente were profoundly difficult and painful. I succeeded in recovering physically, spiritually, and mentally from the cataclysmic defeat I suffered in 1974. As I look back over those years in the wilderness, I would say that I was sustained by always bearing in mind these 3 principles. First, put the past behind you. Analyze and understand the reasons for your defeat, but do not become obsessed with what was lost. Think instead of what is left to do. Secondly, do not let your critics get to you. Remember that they win only if they divert you into fighting them rather than driving towards your goals. And thirdly, devote your time to a goal larger than yourself. Avoid the temptation of living simply for pleasure or striving only to leave a larger estate. Ken, I've got to tell you, those 3 rules sustained me through a very difficult period in my life. When we come back, I'm going to ask you to reflect upon them. Meanwhile, folks, I want to remind you again, if you love politics and you are interested in political history and you want the real inside story of both Presidents Reagan and Nixon, get Ken Kachigian's book. It's called Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon. You can get it by going to ReaganandNixon.com. ReaganandNixon.com. This is the perfect Christmas gift for the political junkie in your family or anyone interested in how the real world of politics looks. Ken Kachigian had a front row seat to history, and he reveals things that, well, even I didn't know about 2 of the presidents that I love the most. He calls out the pragmatists. He is a true conservative, a true keeper of the flame, a man always prepared to present the truth. This book is absolute must reading for anyone who cares about the truth, American history, whether it is Watergate, whether it is Reagan's great triumph over Jimmy Carter and his triumphant presidency. We'll be right back with more of Ken Kachigian, so whatever you do, don't touch that dial. And we're back. We're talking to Ken Kachigian, who served as a speechwriter for Presidents Richard Nixon and President Ronald Reagan. Ken, one of my fondest political memories from the 1984 campaign, when you were serving as the Issues and Research Director, Chief Speechwriter, and a Senior Political Advisor to President Reagan. I was serving, reprising my role as the Political Director for the Northeastern states, including New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all the way up through New England. They gave me Pennsylvania and Ohio. That was President Nixon's idea. He said, give Stone Ohio. He's an animal. But one of my fondest memories was that train trip that we took through Ohio, when Mike Deaver gave me the assignment of keeping former Governor Jim Rhodes away from Reagan. That was my job, because Rhodes had his own ideas of campaign strategy. I'm going to ask you the question many people ask me. It's a simple one. What was Ronald Reagan really like? Was he the same guy we saw on television and in public?
Well, he was. No person is the same in public as he is in private, Roger. I mean, Ronald Reagan had his private moments. His closest person in his life was Nancy, of course. There was no one closer to him than Nancy Reagan. And but you know, there's times when the Ronald Reagan you saw in public was the same guy you saw in private. He and I had such wonderful times together when he was telling jokes and we were laughing together about good old times. And he would tell stories about Hollywood and tell stories about some of the old movies he was in, and especially about his rivalry with Errol Flynn in movies like Santa Fe Trail, or tell these stories about when he was broadcasting the Chicago Cubs at the station in Des Moines, Iowa, and when he was in Hollywood and some of the movies he played, and telling jokes about Bob Hope and things like that. But then there were serious times. That's what I liked when I sat down with him too. When he talked about how the crusade he was on, and that's what Ronald Reagan was the same in private as he was in public. How he was involved in a great crusade to change America. How he felt there was a great, not a burden on his shoulder, but that he felt that the presidency was so important that he came to Washington, as he said in the first cabinet meeting, we came to do things differently. And one day in Camp David, he said, he and I were sitting on the patio working on a couple of speeches, and he said, Ken, he said, we've got this great crusade, and he said, some of the fellows don't understand that we can't let up on this effort to change the economy, to get the grip on how the government is so oppressive, and that we've got to get change. We've got to cut taxes, and we've got this crusade that we've got to move forward. And he felt that even his own staff didn't understand economics like he did, that the government has grown too much and takes too much of our money and takes too much in taxes, and that it's overregulates. And so that was, but he did that in private as well as public. So, but then there were times that he just liked to, have private time to himself, Roger, that he, and I never blamed him for that, where he just liked to be let alone. And I think everybody likes to be private and have time to themselves, and just where he and Nancy just wanted to be together and not be bothered by staff.
Ken Kachigian has written the single best political book of the year. In fact, he's been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in U.S. history and memoir writing. The Washington Post has refused to review this book. That's all the more reason why you should go buy it right now. The book, once again, is called Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon by Ken Kachigian. You could get it on Amazon, but I recommend you go to ReaganandNixon.com, ReaganandNixon.com. If you love politics, if you loved Ronald Reagan or Richard Nixon or both of them, if you want to see the inside of how a presidential campaign really works and how history was made in the name of freedom and liberty, get this book today. Again, Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon. You can get it by going to ReaganandNixon.com. Ken, thanks for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Oh, thanks a lot, Roger.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
The Black Friday BOGO sale is here at All Family Pharmacy, and let me tell you, this is the kind of deal that actually matters. From November 24th through December 2nd, when you buy one ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, or mebendazole, you get another one absolutely free. So at a time when Americans are tired of being lectured and restricted by bureaucrats, this is your chance to be prepared on your terms. No politics, no gatekeepers, just real options that put you in control. Here's how simple it is. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone. Place your order online, and a licensed physician reviews it immediately. Once approved, your medication ships straight to your door, fast, private, and secure. This Black Friday event lasts only 1 week, and supplies are limited. So when the inventory is gone, that's it. No extensions, no second chances. Just like every other real deal worth talking about seriously. If you want to stay ready, stay protected, and stay independent, go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone before December 2nd and lock in your Black Friday BOGO deal. Take control of your health. Stay prepared and stay free.